What's up, folks? Welcome back to TacticalTortoise. My name is Trevi, and today we're talking about something that I super like because we talked about it many times in the past, but we are revisiting it. And that is Snot Goblin Gaming's modular prefabricated terrain. Now, what we've talked about Snot Goblin Gaming and their sets before, this is the full release version of their full color terrain sets. So we're not only talking about their full table setup, but they've also given me to show off to you some of their other colors as well. So while these all use the same modular pieces, they do come in a variety of color schemes that we're going to be looking through today. Now, starting off here, we have a full table boxed set of the system. Inside this kit, you get enough terrain to furnish an entire table using most chapter-proof 2025 terrain layout. This one is called World War World, so good bolt action layout, I guess. But we also have Cursed World, Forsaken World, Desert World, and Shrine World that we're going to be taking a peek at. So first things first, let's take a look at Cursed World. We're going to start a little chaotic today. This one has a little bit more of a Night Lord vibe, I think is sort of the idea that we're going for. Now, to break down what this Snot Goblin terrain is, it is kind of just a terrain building set. So with each of these building kits, we're going to get a number of these base pieces that can slot together in this kind of puzzle piece format. And then we're going to use these preformed plastic pieces that will slot right onto the spaces on the base piece like this. Now, the cool thing about these final production versions compared to the varieties that Snot Goblin Gaming has made in the past is that these are fully pre-painted. So you do not need to add any additional coloration in order to make them pop. And in this case, it looks like these guys are made out of a blue plastic material. And then on top of that has been overlaid a very bloody color scheme. So we have, as I said before, a lot of Night Lord's energy going on in this particular ruin style. But we'll go ahead and fully furnish this section out to show you what the final product looks like. It has these kind of stanchion pieces, I guess, here, that the support pieces that goes in between. Corner pieces that we can slot right in there in between them to fill out the edges of the building. You can construct this as a fully assembled building if you like. There are even window pieces, so you can still have a little bit of visibility through the ruin terrain features. However, these ruin sections here are what we're going to go ahead and capstone off the edges of our little corner piece with. So they're just going to go ahead and slot right there in the corner. We're going to need another set of these supports to slot in the sides. In addition to that, there are also second floor pieces as well. So we're going to be able to build this out into as many heights as we want. And the cool thing about the modular system, once you get into the full table layout, is while it does list the buildings that it theoretically constructs on the edge there, obviously this is all basically modular parts. This box is very unwieldy. This full table worth of terrain is actually a lot of material. It's impressive that they condense it into this tiny thing. It's like a lead bar. But you can see basically there an example of the style of table that it can build out. However, this being a modular set means that essentially all of these pieces are interchangeable. So despite the fact that it does give you a list of what's included in the box, all of the assemblies that are on the boxes are entirely suggested. The whole fantasy of this Snot Goblin Gaming terrain set is that you can construct your buildings out however you want and potentially even mix and match the different color schemes. All of the parts are totally interchangeable, so we can build this however we want to in order to supplement an existing collection or in order to build a brand new set of layouts. So there's our Cursed World Ruin, and we'll go ahead and take a peek at the color schemes of some of the other ones. Well, a little bit of a palette cleanser. Let's do the Shrine World. Now, this one is a bit more of, I think, kind of an overgrown stucco ruin style. One thing that's really impressed me about especially this set is the kind of detail work on the bases here. You can see that a lot of that detail is molded in, so that's part of the plastic molding. However, we do have these prints over top, and this time it's trying to be sort of a mossy, grassy look. One thing I will say is that, well, I think the Cursed World is definitely suited for like a more chaotic style of board. If you are looking for very chaos style of ruins, this is what you got. There's a lot of bloodstains and sort of graffiti and things like that. But if you're looking for a cleaner look, these a bit more of the standard variety is I think, a little nicer. So these ones are kind of like a beige stucco with brickwork underneath that you can see. Now, all of the molding is identical, so the details that are molded in are the same, but they are painted differently, which is how we get this kind of like Batwing style of effect on the Cursed World ones. Now, on the flip side as well, speaking of which, literal flip side, there are differences between the front and the back, so we can use these for a little bit more of a low fantasy kind of wood style window, if that's how you would prefer to theme it, which is very cool. So if you are building this as a structure, you can use this section effectively if you want to use the outside, if you want a little bit more low tech of a look. However, if you want it to look a little bit more grimdark, you can easily just flip it around. Obviously, the modularity is kind of the point, and you can construct it like that. And then from there, these ones come with this nice green base, which is going to blend in very nicely with a grass mat in order to look very overgrown and a little bit run down. So that's the Shrine World color scheme. But we will also take a peek at a bit of a similar one. This is just a basic desert world, kind of more of a beige look. I think I really like this one. This is a little bit more of a consistent tone. The other ones have a lot of variation between the different walls and the features of each of the ruins, as well as between the ruin and the base. These ones are a little bit more natural and a little bit more kind of realistic looking, and I think that definitely doesn't take you out of the experience of playing on the terrain and allows the battle mat to shine through a little bit. We talked about a lot of great battle mats on this channel as well, and one thing that really elevates those is when you get a terrain feature that looks like this, that has a very believable kind of grounded appearance that you can then kind of accentuate with a really nice battle mat. So this is one of my favorite ones, I think, so far. This is just a basic desert world guy, and it's very clean. It's a little bit of gold. We can see kind of brickwork and a little bit of weathering through the facade there. It does have the same thing as we saw on the Shrine World version, where it has kind of a more of a wooden texture on the back here. But this one is going to look a little bit more grounded, kind of very similar to how we have the big full table here from the World War. A whole world where there's only World War. These are going to look really nice. Even if you have a really zany battle mat, as long as you have something that kind of fits thematically, especially with a more of a grim dark setting, these things are going to just splice directly into that incredibly well. As cool as I think it is that there are these like really crazy color schemes available, I think my favorite of these tends to be the slightly more grounded version. That said, this is really cool, especially if you're running if you're trying to support events. And I will mention that Snot Goblin Gaming is doing a lot of event support as well. Having multiple different varieties of the tables, even though obviously the molding is identical, right? So the pieces that you're constructing the terrain out of is always going to be the same, regardless of what the table looks like. Having the crazier pieces like these ones definitely helps the player experience quite a bit, because it allows them to play very consistently, but it doesn't make every table look the same. So I think in terms of making events a little bit more evocative looking, these styles of terrain are probably even more in demand. Now, speaking of a little bit more of a zany and colorful vibe, let's take a peek at the next one that we have. This one is the last one here. This one is the Forsaken color scheme. And this one is even zanier, I would say, and a little bit more chaotic. Now, the first thing I want to call attention to are the base plates. I think this might be my favorite one out of all of them. If we take a peek here, you can see, first of all, it's got this kind of like modeled marble effect, which is very cool. This is all printed on, so the designs are very consistent as well. These aren't like sort of brush painted or anything. These are essentially printed onto the material, so it is also extremely robust as well. But we have these like chaos runes that are emblazoned all over the walls here. It looks like a sort of graffiti, kind of a similar look to the Cursed World. I do like this much brighter facade to the structures, but again, we have some runes and kind of spider webbing designs that have been carved into the walls of the feature, and then we can see kind of like the red brickwork, as well as looks like some blood red, maybe blood splatters or some additional runes that have been painted onto the walls. So I actually think if you put these two sets together, you could probably mesh these two, and they are close enough that I don't think that you would be too far off. Obviously, the bases would be slightly different. You can maybe have these be individually different buildings, and I don't think it would look too bad, but I think you could, to some extent, mix and match the walls from both the Cursed and the Forsaken sets. You can do similar stuff, I imagine, with the Shrine World, the Desert, and the World War stuff, because that's a little bit more grounded looking, so it's all gonna look pretty similar. And I guess as well, you can have it so that individual buildings could have walls that are built from different sets. So for example, especially if I was to build this using the individual building kits, or I were to add individual building kits to an existing collection, you could grab separate sets and then mix and match them with different buildings having slightly different textures. So I think would actually elevate the look of a more kind of cosmopolitan city setup. But that, in a nutshell, is Snot Goblin Gaming and their final production modular terrain sets. Every time they come out with a new update to the system, I am more and more impressed with the quality that they get. And obviously, just looking at them, the printing quality of the terrain features themselves is absolutely insane. Just assembling these, sitting here right now, these are easier than any of the previous varieties that I have put together. And we can even see that, like, putting multiple terrain sets together, just to showcase to you how they slot together into a full building construction. An afternoon, I could put together an entire table of these and, you know, be ready to play a game the next day. One of these days we'll make it big and I'll have a full studio like set up in order to put out a table of terrain, and I would love to have some of the Snot Goblin stuff. Someday we'll get there. We'll finally make it. Go check them out at the links down in the video description. Highly recommend this style of terrain, especially if you are looking for something that is going to be robust. It's going to last a really long time. You're not going to have to baby it. And you can even, you know, the entire table of worth of terrain packs up into this box. Obviously, if you were to partially sub-assemble it, it would be significantly larger. However, it's still not a crazy amount of space to take up. So having something that's also relatively portable and disassemblable is a huge benefit as well. This stuff is essentially the cutting edge of prefabricated terrain technology right now. It has huge benefits over something like MDF terrain. It doesn't flat pack, obviously, but it's pretty close to it. And it's significantly more robust and it's easier to put together. And it has raised details, so it looks a little bit nicer, especially accent lighting on it. So it's not just bouncing flat light back at you. Speaking of somebody who's doing a lot of live streaming, obviously texture is a huge deal on those to make your terrain look really nice on live streams as well. Hugely impressed by these. Yeah, Snot Goblin Gaming continues to do incredible stuff, and I'm very excited to be able to talk about all of their new kits. But with that, big thanks to Snot Goblin Gaming for asking me to take a peek at these terrain features. Thanks again for watching all the way to the end of the video. Remember to keep it classy, folks, and have happy wargaming.